Yeah, hi, Rick from Garrett Park Guitars, and today we are talking with Joe Johnson, who is one of the co-owners of Excel Machines in Baltimore, Maryland. And Joe has been around on the scene for quite a while with PRS Guitars, and really been a part of their history for, gosh, how long, Joe, has it been now?
89, 90.
89, 90. You started, and you and Randy started Excel a few years before that, didn't you?
Yeah, we probably were in business 3 years. 86, I believe we started in business.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went out on my own in 91. I guess you guys have been around 5 or 6 years since then.
We started right after Paul did.
Right. And how did you come to actually know Paul?
I had a neighbor who was actually doing some work with Paul on his tooling and different stuff like that, and he introduced myself and Randy to Paul.
Right. And he's a player, is he not? He plays.
Yes, he plays. He was in on the early stuff when Paul was more or less in his house and all.
Right, right. And where did you first come to? I mean, what location was Paul when you guys first started to, become acquainted?
Paul was still up in Annapolis, I believe. What's that, Maryland Avenue?
Oh, on Maryland Avenue. Yeah, that was before the factory, or
yeah, that was before the factory.
Oh, really?
That's where he was just starting with the dupla carver and stuff.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Right.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know it was actually that far back. They were on Maryland. Virginia Avenue was that first factory that they built before they moved over on the Eastern Shore.
Right.
And that was, I guess, went up in 1985. But you told me one time that there was a pretty cool way that you came to get their business that Paul, I guess at first you talked to him and it was shown some interest, but...
Right. When Bob introduced us, Bob was my neighbor, introduced us. Paul gave us a little tour of what he had going on and all. And at the time, he had a gentleman, Wendell, doing his purchasing for him. He gave us some tooling and little stuff to, see how we could, how we responded, I guess. And whole time I was telling Randy we need to do something to get Paul's attention. So I live in the Catonsville area in Maryland, so I went to a store there, Bill's Music House, to look at some of Paul's products to see what he had. And I noticed on all his bolt-on necks, he had just a steel plate with a number stamped there.
Right, yeah.
So what I did is I took one of his business cards that Wendell had given us, and I sat at my programming system with a set of micrometers and more or less drew their business card. And I took aluminum blanks and had them anodized all different colors and engraved PRS guitars on the back for his neck plate. So we showed them to Wendell, and they kind of blew him away. So he set up a meeting with us to meet Paul. And when Paul saw him, he was pretty impressed with him, too. And I think I'd opened his eyes to some of the stuff we could do for him.
And he said, anybody can do one of these or something?
Well, what happened was once he saw them, I started asking him about bridges. And after, other stuff we had done for him, he finally got around to where he got me some bridge material, because at the time he was having them casted one piece.
Right.
So he got me some blanks, and I made him about 5 or 10 of them. Well, actually, I think I made him 2 first. And he looked down and he said, well, anybody can make 2 of them look good. Can you make 100 of them look good? Right. So we did 100 of them, and we were having some of the same problems that the guy that was making them for him was having, which were plating problems.
Right.
So out of 100 pieces, we might get 60 good ones. So one day in talking to Paul, I suggested, why don't we try making one out of 2 pieces? And Paul said, I have no problem trying that if you want to make one. So I made a 2-piece bridge, which solved the plating problem because we could bolt the base on later.
Right.
And Paul really liked the idea, so that's pretty much how we started making the 2-piece tremolo bridge.
Yeah, Fender's original design was a 2-piece, was it not? There was a bridge block. There was a block that went underneath and then a plate on the top.
I believe the old steel ones were, yes.
And there were 6 bolts that went across the top and attached the saddles to the back of the bridge plate.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. And prior to that, John Mann was making bridges for him, wasn't he?
John Mann was still making his bridges at that time for him, and he was the one having plating problems. And like I said, once we got looking at the casting, the other problem with that casted bridge was, I believe it was red bronze material. You have a lot of porosity, which you don't see until you're in the machining process, and you'll see these little pits and all in it. And Paul's quality standard was so high that You know, it was just hard to get good bridges. To make 100, you might make 125 to get 100 good ones.
And while we're talking about quality, what I know about Excel, I've known you guys a long time, but you make some, I mean, can you talk about who you make stuff? I know you make some
we
stuff.
do a lot of stuff for Northrop Grumman and different, a lot of the aerospace type companies, a lot of medical companies. We do, we're a precision full fab shop. We do mills, lathes, sheet metal, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, you've had some stuff on the space shuttle, or maybe.
Yeah, we've got stuff on the Hubble telescope, on all the space shuttles, a lot of that type stuff.
Right. It's very, very fine, intricate stuff, and
well, that helped us with the polishing of Paul's parts. You know,
Right.
he wanted such a luster finish. We the Hubble Space Telescope mirror is like unbelievable, and that is just a piece of stainless steel that's buffed to look like a mirror, and it's
wow.
It's really precision stuff.
Wow. And so obviously Paul's always had extremely high standards, and that's where you guys, really dovetailed and fit well in with the process.
Yeah, it worked good. Once we all got on the same page, we'd all just sit down. When they had an idea, we would take it as far as we could take it for them. It's like I call them straight bridges, they call them stop tails. But when Paul came up with that design, myself and Wynn sat down. Wynn Krozak at the time was doing his engineering. This was before Paul had engineers or anything.
Right.
And that's a funny story there. I made that one bridge by myself in the shop and probably had 40, 50 hours in that one little bridge.
Wow.
And I wouldn't let nobody in the shop touch it. We had it polished, and it was looking like a piece of glass. And I had a lunch appointment with Paul to show him the prototype, and the first thing he does is unwraps it and drops it on the floor. And he says, perfect, just what I wanted. And I'm looking at him. He said, I wanted to hear the sound. He wanted to hear that ringing.
Wow.
And here I am not letting nobody touch it. First thing he does is drop it on the floor. But as a matter of fact, I think within a week he was on his way to Germany or one of the shows to show some buyers what he had envisioned, you know, because the way Paul explained to me, that was like going back to like the 50s style, going back to that straight type bridge. So.
Right. Now, you've been involved with this strap pins, and what other products did you make for them besides the bridges?
Between the early 90s and probably 2000, we made just about everything that wasn't wood on the guitar besides the tuning pegs. We made his truss rides, his pickup bases, his pickup covers, all the strap buttons, the claws, the tremolo bridges, the straight bridges, any type bridge he made we did. So just about everything that wasn't wood.
Mm-hmm.
On the earlier EG models and all, we did the pick guards, we did the tremolo covers, the headstock, the truss rod covers, and all that stuff out of plastic.
You mentioned the EGs. You and Randy had a hand in those, didn't you?
Yes, Paul only had the Dupler carver, and we kept trying. He was trying to, he wanted to get into the less expensive market, like high school age kids and stuff, and that's where the EG came about. And at the time, we were running CNC mills, and I told him, you ought to see what we can do with these things. So we got together, and we were originally making all the wooden bodies for the EG. I'm not sure what happened on there, and they just couldn't get the pricing where they needed to get it. But we probably did, I'd say, a good 500 or 600 EGs before he shut that down.
Did you make the pick guards too? We
did the pick guards, the bodies. What we would do is we would mill the bodies in, give them a quick sanding job, get them rough, and then his guys, brought them to the high finish that they expected.
Right. Just to explain to our audience, what is actually a CNC machine?
Computerized machine, milling machine. It runs off a computer. Once you get it set up and get it proved out, it's a matter of hitting the button and letting it do its thing. It's got tool changers on it, so something like a body where you got different cars and stuff like that, you might have 8, 10, 12 different tools. Just keeps the human factor out of the error once you prove it out. So it's very nice equipment.